Hello and welcome to the Spokesman's YouTube channel. We often get asked by customers for maintenance workshops, which we struggle to find the time to do, so we thought we'd set up a YouTube channel and give you some instructional videos of how to do some basic bike maintenance. Today I'm going to try to teach you how to remove a tyre, fit an inner tube and fit a tyre. Sounds basic, but it's one of the things we get asked most often and one of the things we see most people making mistakes with, so we thought it would be a good place to start. So, we take one bicycle wheel. First port of call is to deflate the tyre completely. So most bikes will be using press to type valves, so you unscrew the end, push down, and so let the tyre deflate completely, because this is going to make it easier to remove the tyre. So once it's completely deflated, the next step is you're going to want to remove the tyre from the bead all the way around. So you do this by getting your thumbs and just pushing, and you'll know that it's come off the bead because it will sink into that central channel of the rim. So you can do this all the way around. It's best to start at the valve so you know where your starting point is, and then once that's done, flip the tyre over. So all the way around again, starting at the valve, so you know your start finish point. Now, once I've done that, I'll again press the tyre on a flat surface, press the valve again, and you see just a little bit more air is coming out. This is always just going to make it easier to remove the tyre from the bead. So once that's done, the next step is to choose a side, and again, work your fingers round. And what you'll notice is, as you do this, the tyre will sort of sink into the central channel here. One side will sit right up against that. It will mean that your tyre has a high point and a low point. So at this point here, the tyre is at its highest point. So on this point here, it's seated right up against the rim bed. Now, if you've done that correctly, you'll find that the tyre should just be able to lift straight off the rim without the need for tyre levers. Some tyres can be tighter than others, so if you find yourself at this point and it won't do that, find that high point, get your trusty tyre lever, hook it under the tyre. Now you can just push like this. Alternatively, I find the easiest way, especially with stubborn tyres, hook your tyre lever under, take the wheel, put it in front of you. You're going to sit on the tyre and the wheel, put this in sort of 3 o'clock position and just push down. That way you're holding it nice and steady, it's not going to go anywhere. And there you go. That is the first step on how to remove your tyre. Right, so now the tyre is removed off the bead on one side, I'm going to take the inner tube out. So just grab it, pull it away. There's no technique for this. Out comes your tube. Now, if you've got a puncture by the side of the road and you're going to refit a new inner tube and you want to check the tyre to see if there's anything still sort of penetrating through that could cause you to puncture again, I always find the best thing to do is to take the tyre off completely as opposed to leaving it in here. That way you're just absolutely sure that you're going to be able to find anything that's protruding through. So again, at this point, put the tyre onto the floor, lift it up, and it should just pull away from the rim. If it doesn't, again, get your tyre lever, hook it under the rim, flip that over. Again, same as last step, just push down, and it should come away nice and easy. So now you've got your tyre off. Again, find your starting point, so it's always best to start at the logo or the writing. Use both hands, put both fingers under the tyre and just work your way around, feeling for any bits of flint, thorns, anything that's come through that tyre that's potentially the cause of your puncture. So all the way around. And again, if you use the writing as your start finish point, you know when you've gone all the way around. So next step, and we're sure there's nothing left in the tyre, is we're going to refit the tyre. Most tyres these days will have a directional tread, So if you look at the sidewall of the tyre, there'll often be writing. Some will say minimum and maximum pressures, and often there'll be a rotational arrow that points in the direction of travel. Now these Victoria tyres don't have a rotation, so we can fit them any which way, but as I say, it's always best to check. So when fitting the tyre, obviously put your wheel the correct way around, so that if you are fitting a tyre with rotation, you know that it's going to be fitted correctly. Always fit the tyre with the logo above the valve hole. I've heard lots of different reasons over the years as to why you should do that, but fundamentally it's good practice and you should just do it. So line that up, put one side of the tyre over the rim, and again, just work your way around, just slowly pushing it over to make sure that that's seated. So once you've got one side seated all the way around, the next step is going to be to fit your inner tube. So get your inner tube, fill it with a little bit of air just to retain its shape so it's not going to get pinched. Pull the tyre back, start the valve, lift the tyre over, and then just place the tyre in your lap and just start pushing that tube into the rim bed. You want to make sure that it's properly seated right in the centre of that rim bed, so that when you go to refit the tyre, it's going to be easier. Now at this point, you can let a little bit of air out of the tyre, because again that's going to make it easier to refit. I always start at the opposite end to the valve. You'll find that if you're reseating the tyre, you want the tyre to be sitting as flush against the rim bed as possible. If you start at the valve core, because you've got the structure of the valve here, it's going to prevent this side of the bead from getting as close to the rim as possible. So start on the opposite side. Again, just make sure your tyre is seated and just start going around with your thumbs, and just making sure that that tyre is seated. You can see at points like this, if the inner tube is sort of spilling over the side and it's going to get caught underneath the tyre, just use your fingers to push it over. There we go. So now we're getting to the point where we often see people struggling how to get the tyre onto the rim. And you can see at this point it's quite difficult. I'd struggle to do this with my thumbs. Again, that's because this tyre is not seated flush up against the rim bed. You can see here it is, but at this point it's sitting high because I can see the bead of the tyre. So what we want to do is start working our way around, just pushing that tyre in and making sure that it's sitting flush against that rim bed, that sort of groove that you get in your rim. And at this point, because we know that the inner tube is seated, we can let out any additional air. And again, that's just going to make it a little bit easier. And at that point, if you've done those steps correctly, you should just be able to roll on the tyre with your thumbs. You can see at this point here, the tyre is sitting proud. That's because the valve is not seated against the top of the tyre. So you just take your valve, push it in like that, and now seat it back down. Now, if you are struggling to fit the tyre just with your thumbs, you can use a tyre lever, so follow all of those steps. Again, make it easier for yourself by making sure that tyre is seated all the way against the rim bed. And for this last bit, use a tyre lever, hook it under the tyre, push it up, work your way along, push it up, bit by bit, and away you go. When it comes to tyre levers, we recommend Pedro's. Most decent workshops, this is what they're using. They're just super robust and work really well. Don't ever use metal tyre levers. Lots of people think that they're better because they're stronger. The reality is, especially on carbon rims, I mean, it applies to aluminium rims as well. They'll just scratch your rim, so use plastic. It's much safer on your rims and does equally as good a job. Now, what we're going to do is to inflate the tyre, add a little bit of air, get up to about 40 psi. You're just going to want to go around and check that the tyre isn't trying to jump off the bead at any points. You will get high points and low points, so this hasn't quite seated in a couple of places. All you need to do at this point, add more air, get it up to pressure, spin the wheel, make sure your tyre is properly seated. As you can see, that's seated nicely all the way around, it's popped onto the bead, you're done. Thanks for tuning in to this instructional video. I hope it's helped. If there's any other videos you'd like us to do, any bits of maintenance that you'd be interested in learning more about, drop us a comment. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.